I'm delighted to welcome Anuradha Sengupta, a hugely celebrated journalist, as a special guest to our first anniversary and Women's Day special. Welcome, Anuradha.
Hi, Mandeep. Thanks for asking me. I'm quite excited by what you've started, and I'm happy if any sharing of experience here helps anyone who tunes in. So, all good luck to you and to the people who tune in to watch what you do.
Thank you so much. So, happy Women's Day to begin with.
Thank you. To you
I
too.
approached you because, I know that you just said I'm just a journalist, but you are a very creative, passionate, and successful media personality. And from whatever I have read about you, you have carved a niche for yourself as a journalist and interviewer and respected by news personalities from politics, advertising, media, entertainment, society, arts, everything. You have won several awards and felicitations, but you did not want to comment on that, so I will not dwell on it further. Tell me, Anuradha, when you were a little girl, what did you want to be?
So, Mandeep, when I was a little girl, I don't have very clear memories of aspirations or ambitions about what I wanted to do or be when I grew up. But what I do remember about being a little girl and about my childhood days are two things. The first one is that I belonged to a family which was very chatty. So we talked about a lot of things. There was a lot of conversation about everything that was happening around us, whether it was politics or cricket or, the building which we lived in, our community. There was a lot of conversation. The papers would come in every day. There would be some remark that my grandfather would make, some remark that my aunt would make. We would listen. People would drop in. My grandparents were great hosts, and people in the community. We were the Bengali community in Shivaji Park in Mumbai. They would just drop in. And those days, it was not about call karke jao, batake jao. They would just drop in for a cup of tea in the evening. And there was what was called the adda. So while I did live with them, my base and my growing up years in school and college was in Shivaji Park in central Mumbai with my aunt, who was a single working woman, her daughter, and my grandparents. And our home was full of conversation. We had views. We were allowed to express our views, and we had views on everything under the sun. And I grew up hearing older people talk. Okay, and obviously they were talking about things that were not a part of my immediate of immediate interest to me, but were always interesting because they were so animated. That's one part of my childhood that I remember. The other part that I remember is books. I used to be a bookworm. I was a political science and economics student, and my reading in fiction was something that really just happened by the ways, serendipity, stumbling upon in the bookshelves of the British Council Library. I read a book called A Single Man. Okay, it was written by Christopher Isherwood. Many people today will know because there is a movie that was made a few years ago starring Colin Firth in this movie called a Single Man. I read it at that time. And I didn't know about Christopher Isherwood. I didn't know about homosexuality because that was not even talked about in those days, right? Today you have characters in movies, it's decriminalized. So there's so many things that have happened. How, when you read without any filters, without any sense of direction, you can imbibe and you come across ideas which you don't know about, realities that are hidden, but you come across it in this most natural manner, and it opens your mind. It gives you a good vocabulary. It gives you a command over language. It teaches you about other people's stories, or it gives you other people's stories. And it helps you understand that you're really not alone in any way, or you're unique and yet you're individual and unique, and yet there's this shared human experience that you have, and this humanity that you're part of. So that's what I remember about growing up. So clearly television journalism and broadcast journalism is what actually, when I started seeing it as for what it is, the paper and the magazine is journalism, and I was exposed to it, but I didn't see it as journalism. I just saw it as something that's regular, available to me. But the world this week was, oh, what's that? That's how I think the first thought came in my mind. I was told, why don't you try for an MBA? Because that's where great career opportunities are available. So I gave the MBA, the entrance exams. I was shortlisted at XLRI, and then my graduation marks were abysmal because by then I had lost the plot. I was not interested in my formal education at all. I had taken economics and I was not enjoying it. I wasn't, in a peer group. I missed a peer group that was exciting for whatever reasons. And, I didn't get the minimum you need. So I was on the XLRI waitlist, but I didn't get the minimum I need at the graduation level. So I really, screwed it up, to put it politely.
So it's
And
been 2.5 decades of now a very fulfilling career. And
yeah,
in fact, when I was reading about it, congratulations, you actually completed 20 years of your, since
yeah,
the first big interview that I read about with filmmaker Sanjay Leela Bhalsani after his Devdas release
yeah,
in
yeah,
box office hit. So
yeah,
congratulations. You said 2002 you had done that. And
yeah,
before that, you'd obviously done many. But you said in that article that, you thought that you got noticed after that. So
yeah.
tell me, I know you must have been an executive producer to several shows before that, but one of your programs, the Storyboard, it's established you as a force to reckon with, and the Storyboard became a brand in itself. So how was the idea conceived?
That time, at that time, the Amul India show was about, it was a magazine, but not the politics and economics, but the society part, pages of a magazine. If you were to think of a magazine like the India Today or Outlook or any iconic weekly magazines, which used to be so popular at that time. So I started on that, and I really owe a lot to the India show and the guys who made it, for the way I understood television and how to make it. Okay, and I then had the privilege of running the show for 2 years, towards the end of its lifetime. Storyboard is what you wanted to talk to me about, but I think I had to tell you about that because the Amul India
No,
show
no,
was
no,
very
I really
popular.
didn't remember that. And I think that was one show, and the Nikki Tonight, I think, which came
Yes,
a little bit
yes,
after
yes. So
that.
I was an assistant director on Nikki Tonight. So these were, they've forgotten now, but they were very high profile shows then. They were very
Yes,
iconic,
yes,
and
yes.
they were at the cutting edge of television production. Everything looked and was landed and scaled, at the best that it could be. It was setting the benchmarks for what the television industry was doing as production.
Yeah.
Storyboard was a program that CNBC was running in Singapore. And when CNBC launched in India and the TV18 group took over its management and created this partnership, CNBC TV18, one of the thoughts was, if Singapore, which is such a small marketplace, can have a weekly show on advertising, shouldn't India, which is so large, which has such a diverse set of markets? I mean, most people say India is like Europe in terms of the heterogeneity of people and, their interests and their cultures. So, shouldn't India be able to do a storyboard as well? And also, I guess, the people at the CNBC TV18 who were running the show, Raghav Bell, Harish Chawla, all very cool dudes, very clever. CNBC had just launched as a business news channel. It was the first of its kind, right? We created the genre. That channel created the genre in India. And I think Storyboard was also a way, not overtly, but it did serve the purpose of having the whole marketing and advertising community sample us, right? So that was very clever business strategy. And that's how it was created. Also, thanks to my training with Amul India show, and thanks to the fact that all the advertising and marketing community, these guys are again at the cutting edge of communication. They their ads are beautiful. They know how to tell stories. So any program that I had to make that was about them had to have a presentation, a value that was not there otherwise. And that's how Storyboard came about. I did it, I think, for over 10, 11 years, and by the end of it, I think it was the perhaps I mean, I was one of the few people who got a signature show. So I was allowed to put my name on the show. And that I think was a big acknowledgement of the success of the program and the credit that I got for it. So it really helped me build my own brand. And I'm happy to say that by the end of the time I worked on Storyboard after creating it from scratch, is that Storyboard became a brand. This program, which was about brands, became a brand in the world of programs. And for that, I feel very, very gratified.
Yeah, it was wonderful to see again your interview with Balki when you finished 10 years. And before that, these cafe conversations with Piyush Pandey, Prasun
Yeah,
Joshi,
yeah, yeah.
Balki, and some of these people. So
Yeah.
I was able to, it really refreshed my, all those older memories, because we used to watch you those days at the weekly time when it used to come. But it's very interesting how you picked up the subjects week after week and did that. But subsequently, you worked on some other programs, the Off Centers, Reporters Project, Being Legends. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what were these shows about?
Storyboard was my bread and butter and my first love, and it ran for a very long time. Or first baby, I said, not first love, first baby. It was very, very demanding. I think if I'd had a child, I would probably have more to show for my life than that program. But anyway, that's how life turned out. So while I was told that you keep that running, don't let it, don't let it fall in any way, and do whatever else you would like to do. So that Sanjay Leela Bhansali interview that you referred to, um, I had started expanding beyond Storyboard to the business of entertainment. Around that time, in the early 90s, is when the entertainment industry got industry status in India. So there was a lot of interesting stuff happening in the entertainment and media industry, and I started doing a show and several bits of coverage on this industry from the point of view of business, because you're on CNBC. You've got to ensure that whatever programming you do, even if it's not core CNBC, which is stock markets, listed companies, results, macroeconomic policy, that you do things that are part of that ecosystem. Also, around that time, Mandeep, and subsequently, a lot of media companies got listed. There was, in quotes, corporatization. So it was a very exciting time to be looking at this industry. So I did a lot of that. While I was doing that, I did one interview with Sanjay Leela Bhansali, that Devdas interview, and he's a very, very articulate person, extremely talented, and he really participates in what he's doing. He's not, it was not, acha tum interview karne aayi ho to karo jao kind of thing. He was like into the conversation, and it was a great conversation, and it was a greater because I didn't like the movie. So then it became, it became even more interesting. But that interview, I think when Raghav, who used to be the man who founded TV18 and was the buck stopped with him, I think he sent me a note, an email after that interview went on air, and he said, I just saw this, and that's the way a conversation should be. So much chemistry, so much energy, whatever. So that, I think, in my head, this is not something that he's articulated later, but after that, somehow, very gradually and quite quickly, actually, I got to do an interview show. This was on CNN, CNN, IBN, it used to be called those days. Now it's CNN News 18. Rajdeep had just come on board from NDTV, and they had launched that channel. It was TV18's foray beyond business into general news. And he said, your interviews are great. Why don't you do an interview show? And I launched something called Being. And the idea was to interview celebrities, because that's the only kind of person who will get a half-hour interview slot. So I did a lot of celebrity interviews, and my whole approach was, can we get to the essence of a person? Can we really understand what makes a person tick? If a painter draws a portrait and you can try and capture the essence or the soul of a person in a still image, then here you've got a live subject talking about his or her own story and experiences in his or her own words. So you should really be able to capture the essence of their essence, right? So that's how I did Being. And then at some point, Rajdeep said, there are all these iconic Indians who are people in their 80s now. Why don't you do a special series called Being Legends? And so I got to talk to Manna Dey, Zora Sehgal, R.K. Lakshman, Varghese Kurian, and those were wonderful conversations. I realize now how meaningful those conversations were. And I realize now what a fabulous editor Rajdeep was, or a programming, brain he has.
Media dialogues that you're currently doing, what is that program about?
So Media Dialogues is on CNBC TV18. After breaking away from CNBC TV18, after going and doing some work with CNN News 18 for 4 years or so, moving to Delhi, CNBC wanted me to do a show which was in that storyboard territory. So Media Dialogues is again looking at business through the top line lens. But unlike Storyboard, which was a magazine show in which, I would have 2, 3, 4 different topics in one program, I just do one conversation with a CEO, with a corner office person. So either CEO and MD, or chairman and CEO, chairman and MD, to get their view on business through the top line lens. So again, consumer strategy, vision for the marketplace, all of that, but from the corner office, because I really believe genuinely that marketing is not just the marketer's job, it is the CEO's job, in terms of building great brands, building great legacy. I don't mean 1% up, 1% down market share and this ad campaign and that ad campaign. I mean about building brands that last, about corporate success that comes from building good businesses.
So investment in leadership development is something that corporates do in varying degrees. And so what kind of, developmental inputs that women industry receive besides their own learning in their own domain areas?
I don't think there's anything specific for women, but and I don't think training is really very high up there for the media industry. If it's done pretty informally, it's done on the job, but like the corporate sector, which we are part of, but the way you'll have training modules, people actually invest time and effort to go and attend all of this. So I don't think that happens in a very formal way, though now, you have digital learning sessions and stuff that people do. And those, there's quite a lot of focus, at least from what I have seen in TV18, where I've worked in the past and I'm still associated with. I see a lot of effort in trying to create online learning modules, encouraging people to take them and to try and open their minds to what else they could do, how they could go up their, up the value chain in terms of their skills and even opportunities that therefore could come their way. So I see a lot of focus on that, but these are still things that are that are not really, they've not really reached critical mass in terms of their relevance like they have in many other industries.
No, I happened to speak to somebody from academia and then somebody from politics, and they all said that, interesting, you do leadership consulting or coaching, and said this is not something that we are taught. But if you see most decisions that people take, whether it is on decision making itself, or it could be empowering somebody or delegating something, these are things which, if it comes naturally to you, it is good. Otherwise, some of the people do need a little help and a push. And more so today, what when people have different stressors in life, they should know where to seek help if it is important to them, and basically to stay relevant, invest in themselves. So one of these things that we are finding in our WiP community is that we are helping people to enrich their own knowledge and invest in themselves. So more power to you, Anuradha Sengupta, for what you do. May you always have the strength in seeking out stories that are powerful and inspiring. And from the WiP community, thank you so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it, Mandeep. And like I said, I could get used to being on the other side. Thank you. Love to everybody else.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye. Bye. Thank you.